Hi, I'm Dr. Bill Pajatis from the Jacksonville Orthopaedic Institute. I've seen some incredible innovations in the medical field, including a surgery my colleagues and I are proud to offer, the anterior hip replacement. It's a less invasive alternative to traditional hip surgery. I want to introduce you to two local patients who've had the procedure and couldn't be happier with the results. You'll meet Buzz, a patient of mine who's had both a traditional hip replacement and the anterior procedure. He explains in his own words why he believes there's no comparison between the two. But first, let me introduce you to Leanne, a JOI patient who tells us her recovery was better than she ever imagined it could be.
I had been limping for about 3 years, so I didn't think it could be that bad, but I thought I should have it checked. And so I went to my primary and he sent me for an x-ray and then got back with me and said, you need to do some physical therapy, which I did, and that kind of made it feel better when I was doing the actual physical therapy. And then he said, I want you to follow up with Dr. Longenecker. So I went, and it was completely unprepared for him looking at that x-ray and telling me just how bad my hip was. It was osteoarthritis, and it had just really gotten into that joint, and he just couldn't even believe that I was walking on it and putting weight on it. He said he felt like that it would collapse at any time. He said, you need a total hip replacement. This was on that Tuesday, June 19th, that we went. And one thing that struck me about him, he told me the truth. He told me what I needed completely, but I've never had a doctor hop up. I was sitting up on the exam table, and he hopped up beside me and sat there and talked to me as if I were the only patient that he had, and just was extremely comforting and explaining, what this was gonna be like. And then the next Tuesday, went back in, and I said, tell me again, convince me that this needs to be done so that I can understand it. And he did. He took another x-ray just to see where it was. He said it's very much necessary that we do this. And so I said, okay, well, let's do this as soon as possible. And he said, how about tomorrow? He said, I have a cancellation. So we did the surgery on Wednesday, June 27th. And he mentioned that he could do an anterior approach. What that is he comes in from the front so that you're not having to cut those nerves and muscles in the back. So those things are just pushed aside so that the healing is much faster, and the scar is generally a little bit shorter than it might have been. So I appreciate that so much, because I know that my healing has been so much faster. And I know when I went to the joint, they call it the joint camp down the hall in the orthopedic floor, when I went down there and saw all the other patients with the other approach, I mean, I was sitting up past 90 degrees, even with my knees raised up. I was able to get up and down so much easier with little pain. And there were several things that I was able to do that I could see that they were not able to do. A lot more soreness and stiffness that I have not had to deal with. So I appreciate so much that he was trained in that, and that he offered that option to me. Almost 2 weeks past surgery, I quit using the walker, and then the cane, it's kind of optional. I've been walking around without it for several days now. And so I'm just gonna keep walking and working the hip, and that's my therapy pretty much. I love to ride bikes, and so looking forward to getting back. My husband and I like to do that. And then just getting down on the floor and playing with grandbabies and being able to get up without pain. Really looking forward to that.
Joining us now is Buzz, a patient of mine who's had both the traditional hip procedure and the anterior approach.
I played football, always the smallest kid on the team from the time I was small, for the University of Georgia, as a matter of fact. Sports was really important to me. That's probably one of the reasons that I got both my hips operated on late in my life, but it was worth every minute of it. I'm very active, always have been. I competed in a lot of physical fitness things throughout my entire life. I like to compete. Well, I was playing a lot of racquetball, a whole lot of racquetball in my 40s, and at about 48 or 49 years old, at night, my hip would start bothering me, and it was hard for me to get my pants off sometimes. And I was going, what's wrong with, usually those kind of things would heal, but this never healed. And I kept playing racquetball, and then it got to a point about 40, not about 50, I said I have to go do something here because this did not heal. And frankly, I think I waited a little too long. I would have loved to have had it done a year earlier, because I just wasted, to me, a year limping around like an old man when I was 51 years old. But once I got it done, it took me about 3 or 4 weeks and I was feeling really good. That was my posterior hip, which was not near as good as my anterior hip that I had, a few years ago. And once my left hip started feeling anywhere close to like my right hip was feeling before I had it done, I knew I wanted to go see Dr. Pajadas, so I went to see him, and I said, he said, you're going to need it. I said, let's do it right now. Because I did not want to wait. I didn't want to make that same mistake. And that's when he said, what kind of hip do you want? You want the posterior hip or do you want the new one? Tell me about the anterior hip, and he told me about it. He told me it's less evasive. He told me you cut, the cut's a lot less. It's only 4 or 5 inches versus 8 or 10 inches. And I said, let's do that one. The posterior hip, I went in on Monday, I got out on Thursday, and I wasn't ready to get out. It was 3 or 4 days of some pretty good pain. The anterior, I went in and got done at 12 o'clock Monday, and I was ready to go Wednesday morning. Couldn't wait to get out. The anterior hip, I didn't use any pain pills, nothing. Just did it for 2 nights, got out. This one I had to use a little bit of, my posterior, I had to use a little bit of pain pills. When I got out, I was 60. Now we got to remember, I was 52 when I did my right hip, which was the traditional old hip, and I was almost 62 when I did my left hip. So you would think that the right hip would recuperate a lot quicker, and you'd be back up on your feet a lot quicker. But my left hip, which is the one I did at 62, I shot, well, I'm not going to tell you what I shot pretty good, but I played golf about 2.5 weeks after I did it. Against everybody's telling me not to, but I mean, I knew how to control it and not overdo it and overswing. With my posterior hip, it took me at least 3.5 months before I got out there and hit the golf ball. So I really say that the anterior hip's about 3 or 4 times, you heal 3 or 4 times faster. I'm just really happy that Dr. Pajadas had learned how to do this anterior hip.
We hope you enjoyed these stories. To learn more about the anterior hip approach, call JOI right now at 627-1HIP or click on the banner at the top of our website, joi.net.